Right. Which police departments are as diverse as their communities? NewYorkTimes.com. The New York Times. Which police departments are as diverse as their communities, by Lauren Leatherby and Richard A. Opel Jr., 23rd of September 2020. Amid a national outcry over the lack of diversity in institutions across the United States, new federal data show that rank-and-file officers in hundreds of police departments are considerably more white than the communities they serve. Of 467 local police departments with at least 100 officers that reported data for both 2007 and 2016, more than two-thirds became whiter relative to their communities between those years, according to a New York Times analysis of the data. At least 332 of the departments became more white relative to the population they serve. At least 135 became less white relative to the population they serve. Some departments, including many of the largest like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, and Dallas, narrowed the gap between the share of white police officers and white residents when comparing 2016 with 2007. But most police forces did not keep pace with the changing demographics of their cities, as the charts below show. Departments that became more white relative to the population. Philadelphia, I think, is that more or less? I don't know. I don't know how to read these. What does that mean? And I don't. It's so yucky and dumb. Anyway, I can't really see that one. Note, the data shown includes local police departments with at least 100 full-time sworn officers and does not include state departments or sheriff's office or agencies serving special jurisdictions like schools, airports or parks. The widening racial gap means that at a time when the nation's population is growing more diverse, residents more often meet officers who don't look like them. There is a concerted effort among many police forces, especially in urban areas, to recruit and hire more officers of colour from 2007 to 2016, the most recent year for which federal data is available. And there have been decades-long gains in the numbers of officers who are not white. Indeed, from 1997 to 2016, estimates of the proportion of officers of colour across the country rose by 6 percentage points to almost 28%, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, with the biggest police forces growing more diverse. But few cities reach the point where the demographics of their police departments better reflect their communities. Nationwide, the share of white officers exceeds the share of the white population, and the gap has grown larger over time. Black and Hispanic groups remain unrepresented in the police force. Share of local police officers in US population by race and ethnicity. I'm feeling so dumb. I have no idea how to read that and I don't understand. Anyway, while many police departments became more diverse, black officers often continued to be less represented. Diversity gains were instead fueled by growing numbers of Hispanic and Asian American officers, a decline in the number of white officers, or a combination of both. Change in share of officers 2013 versus 2016. And there's that there. It's probably going to be better landscape portrait. It'll be portrait. But anyway. Suppose I don't understand and it's boring. I'm not going to read anymore because it's dumb and I don't like it. It's yucky. So, it's It's just so yuck. Inside America's police departments. Which police departments are as diverse as their communities? Next, inside America's police departments. Risk of being killed by police. Use of force in the United States by age. Blah, blah, blah. Police brutality. People shot to death by US police by race. But we've had that already in some kind of strange way. Oh, I remember reading that. I think it's a repeat or whatever. Ten comments to race in the police. Police Foundation organisation. What does this have to say? Come on, hurry up. National Police Foundation, advancing policing through innovation and science. Race in the Police by Clarence Edwards. Race continues to influence how people of African descent in the United States are treated by law enforcement. Racism has been a systematic feature of American society and all of its institutions since this nation's inception. Acknowledgement of the role implicit and overt biases have historically played in creating disparate law enforcement practices and the resulting frictions between African Americans and the police is a reality that should be immediately addressed. Fuck, I hate that. I want you to fuck off and let me read it. I think I read that really badly. By Clarence Edwards. Race continues to influence how people of African descent in the United States are treated by law enforcement. Racism has been a systematic feature of American society and all of its institutions since this nation's inception. Acknowledgement of the role implicit and overt biases have historically played in creating disparate law enforcement practices and the resulting frictions between African Americans and the police is a reality that should be immediately addressed. The assignment of Caucasian, Hispanic, Asian and even African American police officers to police poor, predominantly black neighbourhoods who have had little or no social contact with members of this group or specific training in how to effectively interact in such environments is an ongoing recipe for disaster. Police officers from each of the aforementioned groups sometimes bring negative attitudes and or stereotypes to these communities that can adversely affect their decisions and the fairness of their enforcement actions. Some police forces in this nation have historically played critical roles in maintaining positional power for whites. This has created a very difficult chasm to overcome when police departments attempt to implement community policy. How long has it been? 8 minutes. The last sentence. This has created a very difficult chasm to overcome when police departments attempt to implement community policing initiatives. Fuck. This has created a very difficult chasm to overcome when police departments attempt to implement community policing initiatives. Negative minority community perceptions of police in America have a historical basis in fact and should not be ignored by elected officials, the police, or the media. The war on drugs, with its primary focus in black and other minority neighbourhoods, where stop and frisk police protocols routinely subjected hundreds of thousands of innocent minorities to such searches, exacerbated feelings of marginalisation and frictions with the police. African Americans across this nation are aware and concerned about the ongoing existence of race-based profiling of this segment of the population by means of some police departments. Cooperation with the police is predicated in large part in minority communities on how minorities perceive the fairness of their treatment by the police. Disparate treatment of minorities is counterproductive to the provision of efficient and effective public safety services. Personal prejudices or partiality on the part of police officers that interfere with their professional judgment and is counter to departmental policy and training has no legal place in law enforcement. The US Department of Justice suggests that racial reconciliation is a process through which both criminal justice system practitioners and communities can acknowledge past and present harms and together move beyond them. The willingness of society to honestly examine this issue must be the first step in changing these disparities. Police chiefs determine the organisational culture of their departments and should be held strictly accountable for ensuring that all segments of the public are treated fairly. America's changing demographics require a careful evaluation by both elected and law enforcement officials if the nation is to diminish the likelihood of widespread future civil disturbances. Society sometimes has an opportunity to choose between options, the one that is right and the one that is wrong. The historic minimalist inclusion of minorities in public safety decisions impacting their neighbourhoods is an example of a missed opportunity to reduce frictions between the police and minority communities. The following conditions can and frequently do create an environment where negative police-minority community interactions are likely to exist. A police department with a history of using questionable, excessive, and at times deadly force against minorities. A police department that investigates allegations of officer misconduct using opaque protocols. Zero-tolerance policing tactics that focus on minorities and minority neighbourhoods. The presence of media outlets that daily highlight crimes allegedly committed by minorities. K-12 public schools where police school resource officers are used as student disciplinarians in non-violent situations. Oh God help us, all a load of shit and it's very boring. Fuck. On and fucking on. So, very, very boring. So I've never been so bored in my life. George Floyd, how are African Americans treated under blah blah blah. Very, very